All right, hello class. Today we're looking at this photosynthesis and respiration homework. So it says, what is the relationship between photosynthesis and cellular respiration? So for this type of activity, we're always just reading the information that's given, and then we're reading the information that's given on the model and answering the questions, so we should not need any other sources of information. So if we start, it says why. So I'll read that. It says, photosynthesis and cellular respiration are important cellular processes. They are connected in ways that are vital for the survival of almost all forms of life on Earth. In this activity, you will look at these two processes at the cellular level and explore their interdependence. So interdependence means how one process depends on the other process, and etc. Okay, so, and vice versa, I guess is the best way to put that. So if we look at model 1, and try and fit it in there to the best of my ability, but you should have this, so take a look at it. It says a comparison of photosynthesis and respiration. So photosynthesis here is written out as a chemical reaction. So it says 6 CO2 molecules plus 6 H2O molecules plus energy, okay, is transformed into, or forms, C6H12O6, which is glucose, and 6 O2 molecules. So this is diatomic oxygen. This is the type of oxygen that we find in the atmosphere. So I'm going to write them out, like what they are, what their names are. So we should know this one already. So carbon dioxide, should know this one. So this is water plus energy. This one is glucose. That's what we were calling it in the other activity. So if you're not familiar with that or you didn't take a bio class, the C6H12O6 is glucose. Glucose is a carbohydrate. It's a single sugar called a monosaccharide. It is the type of sugar that people measure. Like if you go get a blood test and they measure your blood glucose levels, so they're looking at the levels of this carbohydrate within your blood, okay? And then it says plus O2, so this is oxygen. Okay, perfect. Then examining the model, here we're located in the chloroplast. So that's just telling us that that's what this thing is. That's what the blob is. I see some oxygen leaving. I see some sunlight moving into the chloroplast. I see that this looks like one of those systems diagrams with all the arrows. So I'm looking at the flows. So there's a flow of glucose around and into something called a mitochondrion. And then there's a flow of CO2 and H2O around and back into the chloroplast. Then I see some things moving into and out of the mitochondrion as well. And then I see here labeled respiration. So I'm in the mitochondrion. It must be that respiration is taking place in the mitochondrion. So it's telling me that here we're taking glucose and oxygen, and they're reacting to form carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Okay, perfect. So I'm just answering these questions. So just using the information that's given. So it says, in what organelle does photosynthesis occur? Here, let me see if I can just fix the camera a little bit. Trying to focus it a little bit better, but we'll see. So in what organelle does photosynthesis occur? So organelles, just so to jog our memories, are the parts of cells. So just like our body contains organs like our heart and our stomach, cells or eukaryotic cells like plant and animal cells contain organelles that have their own individual function, kind of like our heart has its own function within our body. So it's kind of similar. So we're looking at these structures that we can find within a cell. So where are we when photosynthesis is taking place? So that says we're in the chloroplast. So all I'm doing is I'm moving that information there. So chloroplast. Now, what are the 3 reactants? So reactants are the inputs or ingredients for this process to take place. So then I go back and I'm looking and I need 1, 2, 3 things. So I'm writing, okay. And it doesn't matter if we use the words or if we choose to write the chemical formula or whatever. It's up to you. So I could say CO2 or carbon dioxide. I need water, H2O, and I need energy. And if I'm being more specific and looking at the diagram, I need energy from the sunlight. So I'm going to be specific here. So this is energy from sunlight. Perfect. And what are the 2 products? So the products are the things that I'm making. So if I go back again, I'm making glucose and I'm making oxygen. So that's what I'm recording there. Glucose and oxygen. Again, however you get them down, that's fine, okay? Then we'll flip. So now it's referring to Model 1, and now we're looking at cellular respiration. So it asks where it occurs again, what are the reactants or the inputs, what are the products, what are we making, etc. So then we keep going. Then 3 is interesting. It's asking us what is recycled during the photosynthesis and respiration. So the first thing that I would look at is because we're flowing in a circle in these arrows, I'd think about what seems to be moving from one thing back into another, right? So what is it that's being recycled or moved around? Then I'd look at the other arrows, so going into and out of our organelles, and think how they compare. So we're trying to figure out what 4 things might be recycled. Then the next thing it's asking is what component is not recycled. So what can't we seem to reuse? Okay, so it's only found, so the item that would be only found on either the the respiration side or the photosynthesis side. So we're trying to figure out what's different, okay? So then you have some questions to think about. So I want you to write your answer, write down to the best of your ability why you think these things are. Please remember as we're going through this, producers like plants and algae require the process of photosynthesis to take place in order to make their own energy. So anything that is a producer has to have photosynthesis take place. And photosynthesis takes place in the chloroplast. That's where it happens. Then if we look at mitochondria, so there's something that's kind of interesting here. So, you have to consider where the mitochondria are found. So mitochondria are necessary for organisms to be able to utilize energy. So they help to transform glucose into ATP, which is just a form of cellular energy. So in order for an organism to utilize energy within its structure and within its cells, then cellular respiration has to take place. So I need you to think about where might cellular respiration take place, and knowing that cellular respiration takes place in this organelle, the mitochondria, so which organisms would have mitochondria? Our most important point is this one. So that's what that key means. It just means it's hugely important. You need to think about the relationship between the reactants and the products, so the inputs and outputs of photosynthesis and cellular respiration, how they compare to one another. So that was the goal of this assignment. So we're trying to focus on that. So I'm going to ask you to just do your best. If you're moving quickly, we did some of it together. This really should not be taking you that long, okay? So try your best, make sure everything's attempted. We'll go over it in class, all right? Bye.